Hi, it's Will, and I'd like to tell you where I've been. The last time I truly remember feeling productive was the release of Maze 9, but you probably noticed that's when the release schedule started to slow down. I know you did because you asked me about it. I made my excuses. It's school, I told you. It wasn't procrastination. That implies a lack of motivation, which I knew wasn't the problem. Believe me when I say there is nothing I enjoy more than creating. So why was it that every time I sat down with Pivot, I was paralysed, clammy hands shakily grabbing the mouse, overwhelmed with the sudden urge to throw up, because even though I knew exactly what I had to do and wanted to do it, I couldn't even move my finger to click a button. The mind is very good at shielding you from inconvenient facts. I'm getting lazy, I said. It's school, I said. This continued for a long time, getting progressively worse, but I brushed it aside. It wasn't affecting my real life, I told myself. Then in October 2017, someone said, Will, I think you're autistic. I mean, they were obviously lying. Sure, I had always had the feeling that I was a bit different from a young age, but I was always quite intelligent and had weird interests, so that's to be expected. And being a bit strange doesn't make you autistic. Sure, there were those panic attacks I've been having since I was 3, that I had always thought were something more, but I know why those are. And I've always had that adversity to loud noises, but I know why that is, right? Someone would have said something. My family knows who I am. The mind is very good at shielding you from inconvenient facts, and I knew that I wasn't autistic. It's a surreal experience to have your whole life recontextualised through the lens of autism. You revisit little moments that you never thought anything of and laugh at them, like all those times I misunderstood jokes, or took figures of speech literally, or, here's a funny one, the time when I was 5 and at the end of the school day we were all putting on our coats. Mine was one you could wear inside out, but there was one side I preferred. With autism, sometimes you have to do things in a specific way, but simple tasks like buttoning shirts and putting on coats become extremely difficult. Everyone was ready to go and I was still trying to turn my coat out the right way. The teacher grew impatient and told me just to put it on. Already embarrassed, I tried, but a sleeve was stuck and I hated the way the woolly side felt in my skin. Everyone was staring at me and the teacher started shouting at me to get on with it. I started to cry. I couldn't breathe. The bell rang. It was home time, but the teacher wouldn't let anyone go until I put my coat on. I was stuck. I tried to explain what was going on, but I couldn't speak and I was holding everyone back. Why couldn't I just put on a coat? What's wrong with you? But I had a great childhood, even if I can't remember most of it. I really must find out why that is. And it's not as if anything like that ever happened again. Well, there was that one time I got yelled at for not making eye contact, and I was terrified to go into school for the rest of the week. Actually, maybe that happened a few times. And just because everyone told me the way I acted was wrong and wouldn't explain why, doesn't give me the right to complain. But all that would have been fine if it wasn't for... Autistic meltdowns happen when an autistic person's brain can no longer cope with what's going on around them. I cling to my mask for dear life, at all costs. But meltdowns are the only experiences truly awful enough to distract me from the constant performance. It's difficult to describe, and I'm not here to make you feel bad. But the best way I've come up with to explain it is, it feels like your brain is on fire. Everything that allows you to function, everything that makes you human, the ability to speak, logic, self-preservation, being able to think in the form of words, is taken from you and you start punching yourself in the head. It hurts like hell, but when you're in that state, you'll do anything to make it stop. I can safely say that the worst meltdown I've ever had is the single worst experience of my life. They take days to recover from. So why is this all relevant? Well, about October time, I started getting really tired. Really tired. Sure, William, everyone gets tired, but not everyone has to do what I do. I have synesthesia, which I don't really have time to get into, but basically it means that I have to focus all the time to make sure I don't go into sensory overload. On top of that, I'm always making sure that I'm standing correctly, saying everything right, always keeping up the act, and as you can imagine, it takes a lot of work. Being implicitly told that all my natural instincts are strange and never being told why from the day I was born drilled a deep-seated fear of ever letting the mask slip into me. There was something wrong with the real me, so always give people the correct version. Basically, the more tired I became, the less I was able to process what went on around me, and the less I was able to process what went on around me, the less energy I had to mask. Each day this got worse. I used just a little bit more energy than I actually had. My worst fears came true. I used all my energy to mask as hard as I could, but still couldn't pass as well as I could before. I stopped functioning. I started blacking out. Up to an hour would pass by with me having no memory of what happened. I slept through every break that I had in the day so that I didn't do it in class. When I came home, I was physically unable to talk. My parents would go through weeks of me barely uttering a word to them, as my days consisted of fighting to finish my homework before passing out at 8 p.m, and the knowledge that the next day would be just a little bit worse. And of course, the more stressed I became, the less I was able to deal with sensory input, the more meltdowns I had. At one point, I was disturbed with having 2 within 5 weeks of each other. By November, I was having 2 a week. Obviously, you don't get away with punching yourself in the head every few days without doing some damage. To this day, I'm not sure whether I'm still experiencing side effects from that time. I know I gave myself a concussion several times. The knowledge that every morning I could walk into school and have the worst day of my life and have no control over that was terrifying. And I love school. School was supposed to be my safety blanket. But finding to make it to the end of each day became a Sisyphean task, and I couldn't keep winning. This continued for 4 months. I spent my 17th birthday crying in a stall, giving myself a concussion in the school toilets. I knew what was happening. I talked to everyone around me. They all knew, but no one could offer a solution. No one could help me. What's more, no one even understood. They tried to, but I just wanted someone to say that they got why I was feeling the way that I did. I would have even settled for someone understanding what I felt, because I didn't even know. But what was I supposed to do? Take months off school? I can't get myself to say what happened. But in January, I experienced a traumatic event. But I had no time to process that, because not 12 hours later, I received some awful news. Something else which I won't describe happened to me when I was 3. In fact, it's my earliest memory I can place. This news dug that up. I went entirely numb. I mentally couldn't process what was happening. It was just too much. But there was no time for that because I spent the next week at family gatherings, acting as perfectly as I possibly could, masking to the nth degree because that's what was expected of me. I had 6 meltdowns in 7 days. If a meltdown is like having your brain on fire, then by the end of that week, the flames had burnt all the way through. I fell farther than I ever thought possible. I did things I never thought I'd be driven to. This lasted until now. I've lived like this for 6 months, but I'm not as bad as I was, and I at least know what's happening now. Autistic burnout. A state of physical and mental fatigue, heightened stress, and diminished capacity to manage life skills, sensory input, and or social interactions, which comes from years of being severely overtaxed by the strain of trying to live up to demands that are out of sync with our needs. I had to find this out myself. No one told me about this or warned me about this, because autism is still so poorly understood and you have to bend over backwards in my country to see anyone who has a clue what they're talking about once you're over 16. I didn't think my expectations were too high for myself. I find school very easy. I don't have a job. YouTube isn't particularly stressful. I wasn't pushing myself beyond what any normal person couldn't easily do. Accepting that your standards are no higher than anyone else's, but you still can't meet them because you have limitations that no one else does, and they will be there for the rest of your life, is, if you have to, one of the most difficult things you will ever do. So what does this mean? Since birth, I've pushed myself beyond what I can cope with, without even realising it, and because this is invisible to everyone else, I'm drained from forcing my mind to cover up any difficulties I've had from everyone, even myself. Oddly enough, the lockdown came at a good time, because this is serious. The average lifespan for autistic people is just 54, and the leading cause of death is suicide. My brain has been permanently altered by this. Odds are I won't make a full recovery, because yes, this is something I need to recover from. I love making videos, but they're not worth my life, and something needs to change right now, so no animations for a while. Today is World Autism Day, and I know this is very much a doom and gloom video, and this may sound a bit rich, but I'm not here to feel sorry for myself, or to be an ambassador. I just wanted to give my honest account, because if I had seen a video like this 6 months ago, I wouldn't have felt crazy for feeling like my brain and my body were giving up for no reason. Just as it took years for me to get to this point, it will take me years to recover, and it will happen again at some point in my life. I am terrified for the future, but I don't want a cure, because I don't have autism. I am autistic, and for better or for worse, that has defined who I am. There are plenty of wonderful, intelligent and insightful YouTubers on this platform who have shared information and educated me on this journey of reassessing my whole life in a matter of months. Please, learn from them so you can be better equipped to help the autistic people in your life, because they are far more qualified than me to be talking to the public about this. But for now, this is my story, and it's one that I'm still writing. But I've had so many people to help me. These 5 in particular. You know who you are. And even though I'm mortified at the prospect of anyone I know in real life watching this video, this is something I have to share. If you're autistic and you're watching this, being like this can feel like you're an astronaut out alone, observing everyone else and that no one understands how you feel. Well, to any passing astronauts, I understand. Until next time, I love you all, and Autism Speaks Good Joke.